Brooke, it is my Friday, and unlike you, I care. So, I went to the bookstore the other day, and today, technically, too, and I got, So, yeah, I got the entire Lord of the Rings series because, see, I read The Hobbit, and I read The Hobbit, and, I read it in the library, so the book that they had in the library had the first chapter of Fellowship of the Ring, and, the second I saw it, I was like, oh, I need to get that book, and I just decided to get the whole series. So good. Super good. I didn't think I'd find myself a Lord of the Rings fan. And because I can't just leave any trilogy behind, I wasn't gonna get it, but shit, it was 99 cents. So I did. As I promised on Monday, I'm going to read the first 15 minutes and hopefully chapter of The Hobbit. I'm so excited. I love this book. I finished it recently. So good. Such a good book. Okay. I strongly suggest everybody sees the movie. Well, read the book first, but also see the movie. It has Martin Freeman in it. Sexy. Yes. It's just made to win. Anyway. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down on or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. It had a perfectly round door like a porthole, painted green with a shiny yellow brass knob in the exact middle. The door opened onto a tube-shaped hallway like a tunnel, a very comfortable tunnel without smoke, with paneled walls and floors, tiles and carpeted, provided with polished chairs and lots of pegs for hats and coats. The hobbit was fond of visitors. The tunnel wound on and on, going fairly but not quite straight into the side of the hill. The hill, as all people for many miles around called it, and many little round doors opened out of it, first on one side, then on another. No going upstairs for the hobbit. Bedrooms, bathrooms, cellars, pantries, lots of these, wardrobes, he had whole rooms devoted to clothes. Kitchens, dining rooms, all were on the same floor, and indeed, on the same passage. The best rooms were all on the left-hand side, going in, for these were the only ones to have the windows, deep-set, round windows looking over his garden and meadows beyond, sloping down to the river. This hobbit was a very well-to-do hobbit, and his name was Baggins. The Bagginses had lived in the neighborhood of the hill for time out of mind, and people considered them very respectable, not only because most of them were rich, but also because they never had any adventures or did anything unexpected. You could tell what a Baggins was going to say on any question without the bother of asking him. This is a story of how a Baggins had an adventure, and found himself doing and saying things altogether unexpected. He may have lost the neighbor's respect, but he gained, well, you'll see what he gained in the end. The mother of our particular hobbit, what is a hobbit? I suppose hobbits need some description nowadays, since they become rather rare and shy of the big people, as they call us. They are, or were, a little people, about half our height and smaller than the bearded dwarfs. Hobbits have no beards. There is little to no magic about them, except the ordinary, everyday sort, which helps them to disappear quietly and quickly when large, stupid folk like you and me come blundering along, making a noise like elephants which they can hear from miles off. They are inclined to be fat in the stomach. They dress in bright colors, chiefly green and yellow. Wear no shoes because their feet grow natural leathery soles and thick warm brown hair like the stuff on their head, which is curly. They have long, clever brown fingers, good-natured faces, and deep, fruity laughs, especially after dinner, which they have twice a day when they can get it. Now you know enough to go on with. As I was saying, the mother of this hobbit, a Bilbo Baggins that is, was the famous Belladonna Took, one of the 3 remarkable daughters of the old Took, head of the hobbits who lived across the water, the small river that ran at the foot of the hill. It was often said, in other families, that long ago one of the Took ancestors must have taken a fairy wife. That was, of course, absurd, but certainly there was still something not entirely Hobbit-like about them. And once in a while, members of the Took clan would go and have adventures. They discreetly disappeared, and the family hushed up, but the fact remained that Tooks were not as respectable as Bagginses, though they were undoubtedly richer. Not that Belladonna ever took any adventures after she became Miss Bungo Baggins. Bungo, that was Bilbo's father, built the most luxurious hobbit hole for her, and partly with her money, that was to be found under the hill or across the water, and there they remained until the end of their days. Still, it is probable that Bilbo, her only son, although he looked and behaved exactly like a second edition of his solid and comfortable father, got something a little queer in his make-up from the Took side, something that only waited for a chance to come out. The chance never arrived until Bilbo Baggins was grown up, being about 50 years old or so, and living in a beautiful hobbit hole built by his father, which I have just described to you, until he had in fact apparently settled down immovably. By some curious chance, one morning long ago in the quiet of the world, there was less noise and more green, and the hobbits were still numerous and prosperous. And Bilbo Baggins was standing at his door after breakfast smoking an enormous long wooden pipe that reached nearly down to his woolly toes, neatly brushed. Gandalf came by. Gandalf! If you had heard only a quarter of what I have heard about him, and I have only heard very little of what there is to hear, you would be prepared for any sort of remarkable tale. Tales and adventures sprouted up all over the place he went, in the most extraordinary fashion. He had not been down that way under the hill for ages and ages, not since his friend and the old Took died, in fact, and the hobbits had almost forgotten what he looked like. He had taken over the hill and across the water on a business of his own, since they were all hobbit boys and hobbit girls. All that the unexpecting Bilbo saw that morning was an old man with a staff. He had a tall, pointed blue hat, a long grey cloak, and a silver scarf, over which his long white beard hung down to his waist, and immense black boots. I'm going to have to stop there. I'm only having to stop because I know how much you hate watching rather long videos, and this is a rather long chapter. So, I'm going to stop there. Page 4. The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I strongly suggest everybody reads this, because it is so good, and I strongly suggest also you read it before you watch the movie. I watched the movie, then I read the book. They're very similar, and yet completely different. So, that's all you're going to get. You're just going to get a little description of Bilbo Baggins and his nice little home, and a bit of fanciful, word choice. And I'm going to cut you off and make you go read the book yourself. Alright, Brooke, I'll see you Monday, or if you make a video response sooner than that, or probably, most likely, never again. Because you don't make videos anymore. For shame. Alright, goodbye.